Hey everybody! In today's video, I'm going to show you how to create atmosphere using the new Water Media Mat by Waffle Flower. This is the Media Mat, and it has lots of little mixing wells and a great big mixing surface for you. It is silicone, so it's nice and soft. Nothing sticks to it. But I'm going to show you a trick that's a little non-traditional for this awesome tool. I am soaking a piece of cold press watercolor paper. I've sprayed a little water on the mat, on the back of the watercolor paper, and all over the front of the watercolor paper. And this is so that my watercolor paper will stay wet all the way through the entire time that I'm working. This is very important for creating atmospheric paintings, which you may have seen and liked in other work, but not known how to create. Since the Media Mat is a non-porous surface, it will hold that water inside your paper for as long as you need it to, and I find this a very fun and easy way to work. I'm starting to paint this with a little serpentine green. I'm just going over the greenery. And I love these little mixing wells over on the side. They help me dilute my paint, add enough paint so that I can do big washes, etc. Now, if you're new to my channel at this point, you're probably thinking, this is the ugliest thing I've ever seen. This lady doesn't know how to watercolor. But just wait. It gets better, I promise. The reason that I'm not worrying about staying inside the lines is I am creating that atmosphere. And the wet paper lets me do this without getting any hard edges for the entire time that I'm working, which is why I love this thing. One of the many reasons that I love this thing. One of the reasons that I love it is my dear sweet friend Nina invented it, and that's pretty amazing. I love knowing inventors. It makes me feel like, I don't know, a friend of Steve Jobs. Except less weird. Nina's not weird. She's very sweet. Now I'm coming back with the flowers, and again, not worrying about staying inside the lines. All I'm doing is creating washes of color around the objects that I'm painting. One of the questions that I get a lot when people are trying to paint little landscapes or paint a sky around a flower is, do I paint the sky in first? Do I paint it afterwards? How do I keep it from looking like I'm outlining the flowers with the sky? Which is a common problem that people starting in watercolor have. And my solution is this: do this wet on wet painting on the watercolor mat, and you will fill in all that white space before you ever start doing any kind of detail. And it gives a very soft, atmospheric look to your paintings. Outlining is not what we want. That's what sort of gives you that cartoonish look that you don't like. I got that look a lot. I'm very guilty of painting skies on dry work, which is a nightmare. Don't do what I do what I say. So here, working on wet paper and not worrying about the details, I can get everything in place before I go in with my more realistic painting. A lot of people get discouraged in watercolor because the process of watercolor involves making some really hideous looking things on your way to making beautiful things. But maybe there's a metaphor in there somewhere for pretty much everything you do. Bread dough isn't as pretty as bread, after all. So don't expect your watercolor to be beautiful right from the start. I think what happens is people bring their perfectionist tendencies to watercolor, and so they don't want to go through that ugly duckling process, but it really is necessary, especially when you're doing either abstract or very realistic designs. I'm doing a little bit of both here today. I'm lifting out a little bit of the blue to sort of give a cloudy look. And this blue, by the way, is manganese blue hue. And of course, I have a cat hair on my mat. Why would I not? That figures. I will lift this off. I'm done laying down the atmosphere. So yes, it's ugly right now, but stand by. And what's cool about this mat is you can just roll it up. But I'm going to set it aside because I'm going to be using it again. Underneath my mat, I have my beloved truly non-slip art anthology mat that I will link you to below. This is on my desk all the time. I use it as a mixing surface, as a mat, whatever. It's fantastic. And it's huge. It covers my whole desk. Truly never moves, never curls. Now that this is dry, you can see that it's given me sort of a glow around all of these plants, which is exactly what I wanted. And now I can go in with my more Virgo looking painting. Again, I'm laying down a little bit more serpentine, just making that color more precise, more intense. And then I'm adding a little bit of Purell Crimson to the leaves. If you have taken any of my classes, know that I always put red and purple and sometimes gold into my leaves. No leaf is truly just green, unless it's a super boring leaf, like a holly leaf. Sometimes those can be boring, but my leaves aren't going to be boring. I'm going to add complementary colors. So this little spray and the flowers are from the same set. I'll link you to those. This is actually an older waffle flower set that I thought would be perfect for this technique because it gives me enough detail that I can go in and show you what the atmospheric effect around the plants does for the way the overall painting looks. Now you're starting to forgive me for that ugly, messy painting, probably. Now note that I have dried the paper at this point. So I can't work all over the whole piece of paper like I could before because this paper is now dry. So I'm doing one leaf, one flower at a time in order to let that Purell Crimson and eventually quinacridone purple fade out and get pulled into the leaf like you would see in nature. If it's a little bit too dry, you'll see a harder edge on those colors that you can come back and just soften with a wet brush. Learning which colors are staining and which ones can be manipulated a little bit takes a little bit of doing, but most of the colors that I use are a little less staining so that I can lift them out, but I've started to learn which ones are maybe not so easy to lift. The only way to learn that is the hard way, so just get your paints out and play with them. Now each of these flowers has basically a center section and then two little petals on either side of it. So I will need to make that center petal a little bit darker, at least at the base, but probably all the way down because it's set back farther from the viewer's eye. And I'll add some definition at the end. But like I said, since it's dry, I have to kind of work one flower at a time. The little darks are what make a big difference, and I'm sorry that a cloud has come over, and so it's a little bit darker than it was in the previous segment. Ever since my phone ate that Hero Arts video, I've been a little gun shy about filming my videos all in one big swoop. So I've broken this one up into 3 or 4 sections, and I upload each one after I film it. And so if a little time goes by and the weather changes a bit, that's why you see a difference in the light level. So sorry about that. It's nature though, and I'm painting nature. Now these leaves that go underneath the flowers, even though it's on a different plant, I decided to do them in the same color scheme. I'm adding a few little dots to the leaves. This is another technique that I really like with leaves. I think that when you pick up a leaf in your yard and you look at it, there are always little imperfections, whether that's from bugs or little water spots, that kind of thing. They're imperfect. And as we know, perfection is for serial killers. Here is the finished painting. Head over to my blog for some giveaway information and more information on the water media mat. Thanks so much for watching.